Hello and welcome to Bird Brains, the YouTube channel devoted to all things avian. I'm Lev Perekian, the author of Why Do Birds Suddenly Disappear?, amateur birdwatcher and instigator of the Twitter Birdsong Project, and I'm joined as always by David Darrell Lambert, professional ornithologist and author of Birdwatching London. David, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm good. You?
I'm all right. I'm struggling, frankly, with lockdown hair. I mean, I know I don't have that much of it, but it's got to that stage where it's getting a bit kind of as well, yeah. And I'm not sure when I'm going to have a haircut.
I'm struggling with lockdown mosquitoes.
Oh no, have you been targeted?
I've been savaged. Yeah.
I was going to say that you don't have the problem with lockdown hair that I do. I think you have a.
No, I've gone for my desert look. It's been too hot for me, so I've just removed as much as I can.
Excellent. Right, so we're going to get straight in with this week's subject, which is one of the most contentious subjects. It's a word that you can mention to people and they will spit and they will swear and they will scream and they'll say, oh, they're evil. It is the contentious issue of gulls, or as people tend to call them, seagulls. And I'm going to start. You see, you cover your ears like that. I've made my peace with the word seagull. To explain to people who don't know, the word seagull is a catch-all term for all the gulls, but of course, as any birder will tell you, that there are several different species of gull in British Isles and all over the world, and there's none of them are actually called seagull. But the trouble is, I think if you start explaining that to people who say seagulls, then you come across as the kind of boring person that explains things like that to people. But so you don't like the word,
That's me.
Well, it's your job to. I've kind of I just let it go, but then at the next opportunity I will slip in the word, the herring gull or the black-backed gull, so just to nudge it rather than correcting people ostentatiously. So what about gulls? I think one of the things that people tend to say is that they are evil. So I'm just going to put it straight to you. Are gulls evil?
No.
Excellent.
Next question.
That's the end of the show. Very secretly so, because I think people think that they're evil mostly because they nick their chips. That's the first thing. People who live near the seaside will probably complain that they are very disruptive. They're very noisy if they're in a breeding area, and they are they can be quite invasive if you have food. But
they're opportunists. That's what you got to remember. They have a varied diet. And, what's available, they utilise. So, like, in the summer months, when you get summer chafer, those, like, beetles that fly out of the ground, fly around tops of trees, I've seen lesser blackbacks coming in and feeding on them. So, obviously, that's not a food that's available throughout the year, so they just use it while they can. And you'll also see them on estuaries feeding on the mud. You'll see them along the shoreline scavenging for bits and pieces, and you'll see them in fields and on football pitches as well, or parks.
And landfill. I mean, they're great for landfill, aren't they? They'll find.
Yeah. I mean, and again, this is us throwing loads of waste out, which they then utilise and feed on. So, and the other thing as well is often at seasides, people throw them their food for them to feed, which isn't so good really, because it tends to be not very healthy food for them.
But also they then learn that, look, humans, that's a species that we can get free food from because they'll give it to us or they'll be lying around. So basically in the final analysis, what we're saying is that gulls aren't evil, they're just hungry, and humans are evil. Fair enough?
Well, some humans are evil. Let's say that.
I think we're getting into deeper philosophical waters than we're prepared for in this show. So they are opportunists. They will nick your food. They're pretty clever as well. They're quite canny at how they will take the food. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, they will go for anything. So it's like a lot of birds that have a varied diet, such as crows as well, corvids, in that, if there's young birds knocking around that aren't being protected, that's a free meal straight away. You see them go for ducklings, goslings as well, and even larger birds and even mammals as well. I mean, there was that video on Twitter, which I still haven't seen, of one swallowing a rat hole.
It was a city centre, bloke sitting in a cafe, and I can't remember what species it was, but it was one of the larger gulls that we're going to look at in a minute. And it just pounced on a rat and gobbled it down in about 5 seconds flat. You see the tail going in last. And there was the video I think it was early last year, on Skookum Island, of a great black-backed gull eating a rabbit hole. And the great black on that island, which I spent a week on last year, that is the apex predator. Of course, the great black-backed gull. And I had an interesting conversation with Richard, who's one of the wardens there, who said, I don't understand why people spend thousands and thousands of pounds travelling to Africa safari to see apex predators like lions and things. They can come to Skookum and see an equally fascinating apex predator and how the whole ecosystem works with the great black-backed gull. So that's obviously a gull lover. And people do also go, I was talking about landfill, they do, dedicated gullers will go to landfill and spend hours sorting out the species there. So we've established that the seagull isn't a thing and that we're not allowed to say that word ever again. What words should we say, and how are we going to distinguish them?
Well, we should just say gulls. I mean, that's the real thing, because they're not just at the sea, they're inland, and some of them the population numbers are crashing, for example, like the herring gull. So though we still see lots of herring gulls, the numbers have dropped so much, they're a real concern.
Yeah.
And the other thing is they're breeding on people's roofs, especially in cities and stuff like that. So we're getting these populations building up as well.
That's really, sorry, just to interrupt, that's really interesting about the herring gull numbers crashing.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, if you spoke to the people on the street, they would say that, oh my God, they're taking over. They're going to, there's going to be more of them. And black-headed gulls, which we're not going to look at there, but they're smaller. They can be quite numerous as well, more inland sometimes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
That's fine. So what we have to look at is on the whole population around the whole of the UK.
Yeah.
So if we go from like having 1 million pairs and then we drop down to 500,000 pairs within a few years, that's a big drop in the population.
Yeah.
So it may still seem like there's gazillions out there, but in real terms, their numbers have crashed. It's a bit like, we have to be very careful, a bit like with house sparrows. House sparrows were just like everywhere.
Yeah.
And then sort of like the mid-90s, we were like, where are the house sparrows?
Yeah.
It kind of like crept up on us. So we have to monitor these birds as a continuous thing, really.
It feels a little bit, just going very sideways onto house sparrows, it feels a little bit like they're kind of made a bit of a recovery recently. I don't know if that's the case. I've noticed them more around in little pockets around the place here, and we've had them come to the garden. Obviously, that's just one local record.
They certainly have, but we're still not up to the high levels that we used to have. You know, I mean, when I first moved to this garden 15 years ago, or 16 years ago, I would see flocks of like 60, 70 fairly regularly.
Yeah.
Now I can like peak about 30 to 40, that sort of thing. So you can see.
There's, I mean, we don't have anything like that. I've been around to your kind of area around Rainham as well. There's always house sparrows there, but not, as you say, not nearly as many. Good. So we've got diverted onto sparrows, which is, they're lovely, but they're not gulls. ID, let's have a look at your lovely slides, which you've prepared. You've gone for 3 species, haven't you? The larger ones that we'll find in the UK, not the smaller ones.
Yeah.
There we go.
So first thing I always talk to people about is when you look at gulls, is to group them, because it's a bit bewildering and it's very simple. We just go small and large. And that's it.
I think I can get my head around that.
But it's nice and simple. I mean, when I look at gulls, that's what I do. I'm not looking at a small set of gulls or a large group of gulls, or is it mixed? And that's how I identify them. That's my first order straight away. And
so in the larger group, how many species are you most likely to see? What do you say?
We're really looking at just 3 species. Your herring gull, your lesser blackback, and your great blackback. Yeah. Now, it varies where you are in the country. So, like, if you live near the Thames, like me, I see quite a lot of yellow-legged gulls during the winter, but that's not common throughout the whole of the UK. And then we end up in a more complex thing, which then takes a lot longer to go through as well.
Yeah, that's a different thing altogether. And I think some of those separations, like yellow-legged gulls and Caspian gulls, they're quite recent separations as well. It's only in the last few years that they've been described as different species. And it comes down to individual feather patterns and that kind of thing, and different stages of the year and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, some of these gulls are fairly straightforward. It just takes a bit of time, and you've got to practice and build up to it, really.
Yeah.
It's like people often go and look at a big flock of gulls and try and find one species they've never looked for before.
Yeah.
And if you don't know your common stuff, it's very bewildering, without a doubt.
So the common stuff, we've got the large and the small. We've got the three large ones, which are the herring, lesser black-backed, and great black-backed.
Perfect.
I can feel another slide coming on. Yes, absolutely.
So we're only going to look at the adults, because I always say start with the easiest, which is adults, and then you move to the young ones, and then we branch out from there.
Yeah.
So really with them, you can separate them out into two groups. You've got the pale-backed ones and the dark-backed ones. The pale ones are always going to be your herring gull, and the dark-backed are your greater and lesser black-back.
Yeah.
But those two are normally the ones that people get confused about. And I always say, I really look at 3 areas. I look at the back colour, and then compare it to the contrast to the wings. So on your herring gull, you've got like a pale grey back with these nice black wings sticking out the end.
Yeah.
On your lesser black back, you've got like a very dark grey, but with black wings sticking out the end. So there's always a little bit of contrast going on there.
Yeah.
And then with the great black back, it's normally uniformly black all over. Only really good views can see there's a slight shade difference.
You can see quite clearly that difference. But the lesser black and great black back look very close, compared to the herring. But there is a discernible difference. I suppose light conditions make a difference, that kind of thing.
Very much so. And I always say, if you want to study gulls, go on a cloudy day, because when it's bright light, it's very it washes out colours, makes it much harder to judge shades of grey. So for your 50 shades of grey day, a nice overcast day for that, like today.
For like today, from my point of view, when I'm looking at all these things, I can easily get distracted and confused by things looking at that herring gull, like at its head colour. Because quite often a fully adult herring gull will just have a more white head. Yeah. And they come in all different shapes, different shades of streaking and colouring. And it depends partly on what age they are, don't they? There are age groups for these gulls. They go over 4 years to their adult plumage. Is that right?
Yeah, so the confusing aspect is that when you look in the field guides, they talk about summer plumage and winter plumage. Yeah. And the trouble is that winter plumage is really actually an autumn plumage. So they obtain this like heavy streaking on the head, like with the herring gull here, in sort of like August, September time. And then by December, a lot of them are losing it. So by the time we get to January, which is still our winter, they're already losing this and going into like a white-headed look. Yeah. So that kind of feature is quite hard. So I can't leave that alone. So because they take up to 4 years to become an adult, they go through various stages of molt and look very different through the years. Yeah. And that's quite confusing. So it's best to work with adults, learn your first winters, because once they get after 2 years old, they then start developing adult-like feathers on their back, which then gives you a good clue. And we'll have a little look at that right at the end. Okay, go on then. So I've interrupted you, Flo, again. Let's keep going. Shall we on to the next one? The next thing I look at is the bill. Yeah. Now, with the herring gulls and lesser blackbacks, they've got quite a hefty bill on them, which looks very impressive. And compared to your small gulls, it looks massive. Yeah. But when you look at the great blackback, he's got a massive, great big conch on his mouth. Absolutely. And I always refer to people as in, what can you open with this bill? So if you have the bill of a herring gull, you could do a tin of beans easily. Yeah. With the great blackback gull, that bill is so big you could get right into a car, no sweat. Excellent. I always think also, and it's probably just me imposing these things, I always think the great blackback gulls look absolutely furious most of the time, which lesser back, they don't quite so much. There's just something about them that really, they're about to kick off at any moment. I think it's because they've got a very small eye as well. So when you look at the other gulls, they've got like a normal kind of looking eye, but the great blackback is this really small eye. Yeah. And in the autumn, the herring gulls have streaking, the lesser blackbacks and herring gulls have streaking on the head, but the great blackback has none. Right. But it runs out sort of like as soon as you hit December, the first few of these start becoming white-headed and you can't really use that feature. Yeah. So the next thing we'll do is we'll have a look at, here we go, here's all the labels, nice and clear. Excellent. Is we'll have a look at them in flight as well. And in some ways it's a bit easier. It's very similar. We're using the back, sort of like the wing pattern, to really do everything again. So if we have a look on the herring gull, medium grey with these black wing pale grey with these black wing tips. Yeah. On the lesser blackback, we've got like a dark grey that often looks very black. Again with the black wing tips. So there's a little bit of contrast there, can be quite tricky to see. But the other really nice feature is that on the lesser blackback and great blackback, it's got like this dusky trailing edge to the back of the wing, which we can see quite nicely.
Yeah, yeah.
And on the great blackback, normally really dark all the way across, so very black looking throughout the whole of the year. Only in really good sunlight can you see any slight darkness towards the end of the wingtips.
And even if you're seeing them from underneath, which is usually what you will see them from, terrible construction there. You can, if you get a good view for a few seconds, you should be able to sort those differences out, because they'll quite often they angle as well a bit, don't they? Or they'll change their angle and move around a bit.
Sort out between the herring gulls and the blackbacks. Look for that dusky trailing edge. Really stands out very well, even on dark, gloomy days as well. And with the great blackback, they tend to have a real heavy bill, and the wings are very broad looking. But normally we see masses of herring gulls, then a handful of lesser blackbacks, and even smaller number of great blackbacks. So normally you learn your herring gulls, you pick out your lesser blackbacks, and then you wait for something odd to come along. You think, blimey, look how big that great blackback is, really.
Yeah, so the herring gull is the default gull, the default large gull.
Yeah, generally speaking.
The black-headed gull is like the default small gull, really.
Yeah. They're the ones. It's always with any bird identification. Always learn your commonest ones first of all.
Yeah.
And that always helps you identify anything unusual.
Yeah.
Really.
Absolutely.
Now the thing is, the size difference is really apparent, and this next slide makes it quite straightforward. So you can see here, we've on the far left-hand side, we've got a lesser blackback, but on the right, you've got your great blackback. And you can see how much bigger it is, and it's like a head taller than the other gulls.
Yeah.
So when they're in a mixed group, the great blackback often stands out. And these are young ones, so you can see they're starting to get their dark feathers coming through.
Yeah, but the plumages are all very similar, really, to the immediate, the first glance. And the legs, sometimes, lesser blackbacks have yellow legs, and great blackbacks
should have yellow legs and should have pink legs. So with the herring gulls, they're normally always pink. Yeah. Although there is a small group in Scandinavia that has yellow legs, so it can happen. I've seen them with yellow legs. And lesser blackback, sometimes they retain sometimes their legs are quite washed out, so it's very hard to judge, is that a pale yellow or is that a pale pinky colour? And sometimes they can have pink legs as well. And the thing is, if they're in mud, you can't see the legs. Exactly. If they're in the water, you can't see the legs. So I rarely use legs at all. I look at legs sometimes afterwards to see what's going on, but I don't use it as a feature at all.
You see how my small level of knowledge plays right into your hand, so you can put me right at every possible opportunity. Have you got any more pictures for us to look at?
This is it on the slide, but I mean it's very easy, because the books often do aim you at legs, and it can be a useful feature. Yeah. But it's not so waterproof. Do you see what I mean?
But yeah, absolutely. But also I think the book. So look at the Collins page on the herring gull, and you go, they've got dozens and dozens of pictures, all these different things, and you just go, it's all too confusing. So that has been very useful. We've got to wrap up. We've got a couple of questions. So firstly, there's a general one that people have asked me in the past, which is, so how can a gull eat a rabbit whole? Because, rabbit big, mouth small.
Well, you've got to look at stuff like cormorants. Have you seen a cormorant with a massive fish?
Yeah.
Or herons with massive fishes? Yeah. So they have the ability to swallow these things completely whole all the way down. And then, have you ever seen the photos of the pelicans in St. James's Park? Sometimes you see them pigeons and stuff like that. It's quite common,
Yeah. So they have the jaw that they can kind of open and let it go down. It's great. It's a nice trick if you can do it. And the final question is there any part of the world, this is from Marion, is there any part of the world where gulls do not roam?
None. I mean, I've seen gulls in all sorts of areas, on the coasts, on the edge of deserts, through to up in the cold Arctic regions, and you get them down in Antarctica. They're in every continent. They're everywhere.
There's hundreds of species, aren't there? I mean, we have probably, a couple of dozen in this country, but all over the world, there's quite a large variety of numbers. And just again, to recap, the final question, are gulls evil?
No, they're beautiful. Beautiful.
They're lovely.
We love Gulls.
Learn to love your Gulls. We love the Gulls. I like the heart. Thanks very much, David. That's absolutely brilliant. If you've enjoyed it, you can subscribe by clicking buttons. I never get this right. I think you can click during the video or during the credits, or you can give us a coffee, Please play the music. Put us out of our misery. Thanks. See you soon.
See you later. Bye.